FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hello, blanket huggers. Stefan here. On March 28th, 2021, Josh and I received a message through our website's Submit a Sighting form from someone claiming to be Terry R. Rist, the man referenced in Hellier and the man interviewed by Alan Greenfield in Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts. From there, we received a number of cryptic emails filled with information on places to search for answers to the larger mystery of the quest and journey Josh and I have been on. So we decided, fake or not, we should take it seriously, as much of the information given panned out and definitely opened our eyes to many new things. So we enlisted the help of Astral Stew co-host Santosh and FearScape guest and Greenfield's publisher Olaf Phillips. Together, the four of us have been digging deeper and deeper into not only the true identity of our source of paranormal gold, whether he is the Terry Rist or not, but also into the mystery of the information given us. It has led us to some amazing doors into such things as the secret space program, Hollow Earth, Darrow and Tarot, caves, underground bases, government cover-ups and conspiracies, and so much more. So if you would like to learn more about these emails, Terry's advice on where to look for more high strangeness, and our conversations and discoveries thus far, please become a monthly subscriber to our Patreon called Wristwatch at fearscapepodcast.com/support or patreon.com/fearscapepod. There you can get access to the emails themselves, the WhatsApp conversation about it all with Josh, myself, Santosh, and Olaf, and even any new clues that we have found. You can even join the investigation and add anything you have found to help us dive deeper into the mystery. You will also get access to other FearScape-related things, such as extended interviews with guests not aired on the show, early access to Estes sessions with us and friends, and so much more. Wristwatch is a Patreon exclusive for our most dedicated fans. Join today and discover why the truth is now.
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another out of this world, past the moon, past the United States, in that order, episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by the sassy McPantsy co-host himself, Josh McPantsy Fancy Sassy Rutledge. What's up, brah?
I am feeling spectacular.
You should be, because you're actually in Phoenix next to me in IRL, as the kiddos say in real life.
I was wondering what IRL stood for.
So. Man, you need to get hip, bro.
There should be like some sort of a. I feel like Urban Dictionary needs an app.
Do they not have
one?
No,
they don't. It's only on the website.
I'm always surprised when like very popular things don't have apps that are already a popular online thing.
Yeah, I know.
Like Pornhub? Where's the app?
There is an app.
Oh, there is?
It's just not available in the store.
Oh, well, never mind. I was just joking about Pornhub because I don't go there because I got a wife.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we have a very, very fantastic episode tonight. And I say this because yet again, we got another bucket list guest tonight. We are getting spooky with author and the niece of the famous duo of UFO abductees that I know, Betty and Barney Hill. One of the very first outspoken abductee cases in the United States, probably, if not the world.
Yeah, probably arguably the the case that put abductees on the map.
For sure. And I can't tell you how many times we've talked about Betty and Barney Hill on the show. But we've got her. She has written a story, written a book that kind of goes over way more than the original book that was written back in the day by someone else. This is a closer connection, and we're very, very excited to talk to her. And we'll get to that shortly. But Josh, I just wanted to say, man, it looks good on you.
What?
Phoenix.
Thanks. I met him last night.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to remind folks a big thank you already to those that have joined our Patreon. We love you guys so much. More to come. But yeah, like we said last time, we've got so many new tiers. We've got all kinds of cool stuff going on. And this is a great way to help support us, help us do the things that we do, and to help us support even our network that we're running out there.
And just to highlight one little feature in one of the tiers, you like Cryptid of the Week, you like UAP Sighting of the Week, at the veteran tier, you get to contribute. You get to read Cryptid of the Week or UAP Sighting of the Week. We'll put it in a podcast episode.
Yep. You'll, instead of our lovely voices, we get to hear your lovely voice read one of those. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, anyways, I wanted to get moving. Before I say, make sure to like, share, and review our podcast. No, I wanted to get to our first podcast segment of the week, which of course is Psychic Word of the Week. I bet you guys already knew that.
And now, the Psychic Word of the Week.
All right, Psychic Word of the Week comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, Honey Bear. I miss you, and I've never even met you. If any of your relatives are listening, I would love to talk to you. Hit me up. Anyways, we randomly pulled a number out of the hat, and it was the first part of the Ghostbusters phone number, which is 555. And so we turned to page 555, and I looked down and I saw the phrase 7 major rays. Now, if you guys are an unsensitive listener, this is not Ray Robinson. There's not 7 Ray Robinsons, though he would love that.
Although, what if Ray Robinson is one of these 7 major rays?
Oh, I mean, he is a major ray. I mean, like the 3 major rays in my life: Ray Robinson, Ray Stantz, and Ray Charles.
Ray Liotta's got to be up there too.
Oh yeah, he's number 4.
Yeah.
Ray Romano is not on the list.
He's the 8th. He's the 8th one.
He
didn't make the cut.
He didn't make the cut. Oh, I'm so sad I didn't make the cut. Oh God, I'm a minor Ray. Minor Ray. Anyways, here's what June says about 7 major rays. She says this is esoteric. She says colored wavelengths emanating from the great white light, visible to mankind in the form of a rainbow, interrelates with the 7 planes in the etheric world and with the 7 centers in human beings, manifestation of the 7 great cosmic periods. So basically 7 energetic lights is what we're looking at. So chakras, there's 7, right? Santosh is going to kill me if I'm not right.
So I think that, yes, the official, there is 7, but I think there's more than 7, but most people only talk about the 7.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What are you counting above crown?
Well, the one that's up here.
But that's crown, isn't it?
I guess. I don't know. I don't deal with chakras. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there are 7 rays of light in the. That's why I thought she was talking about with the human beings. I'm surprised she didn't just say chakras.
But you know what's really interesting? In the single box of crayons, you get 8.
Well, that's Ray Liotta. I mean, Ray Romano.
But what's
nobody uses the white crayon, Josh.
I use the white crayon.
Except for that one day where the teacher's like, today we're going to use black construction paper.
Right.
Everybody's like, yes!
So finally,
use the
white crayon. Yeah, I'm gonna draw a skeleton because.
Oh, yeah.
Or a ghost.
What else is there? Snow.
Right, yeah,
I'm gonna draw a snowman.
I'm gonna draw a white polar bear.
I'm gonna draw the whitest thing that I can think of, and Perry Como. I'm gonna draw Perry Como. But yeah, so 7 rays, that major rays, that makes a lot of sense. And, I like that talking about the great white light. I mean, we use white light all the time. I never thought about it separating into the different colors.
Something I was reading recently is that if you have LED light bulbs in your house, which most people probably do at this point in time, the white light from the LED bulb is not the same kind of light as what you would get from like the sun or a candle or whatever the case may be. That like things still look different when it's more natural light than artificial.
I mean, we grew up in the 80s, dude. I need my yellow light. I need 60 watt and less. 60 watt and less. If I need more, I've got a book light.
If you walk into a room and flip the switch on and you don't hear a hum, then there's something wrong.
I like that they've started coming out the last couple of years with yellow LED lights, so that you can still have that color, but have, the bulbs that are going to last forever. So
right.
I think that's cool. Oh, I think we've drugged this on. Yes.
Definitely enlightened now.
7 great rays.
No,
sorry.
7 grays? Is that what you said?
7 major rays. Sorry, Ray Romano.
Yeah.
I do like your cheese, though.
I mean, if you would like to, petition to be raised on the list.
Was that pun intended? Raised? Oh, my God. Welcome to Bob and Tom's Paranormal Show. Anyways, let's move on to our next segment of the week, which is the UFO sighting of the week. All right, Josh, what's our UFO, UAP, USO, whatever? There's so many terms now. Sighting of the week that we can go over, which, of course, I wanted to make sure we did this because we got, Kathleen coming on the show. So this needed to happen. So what do we got?
So this actually happened 6:24. So this morning.
Damn. We recorded on 6:24 and it happened this morning.
Yeah, so this happened in Salisbury, Maryland.
They make good steaks.
Yeah. Unless they have mushroom. I don't want to celebrate with mushrooms. Anyways, here we go. For the life of me, I can't remember the exact day. There was a new TCBY near my friend Tom's apartment. We walked over before it closes to try some yogurt. On the walk back, we were in an alley behind that leaded to his apartment. We look up and see the disc just hovering above the buildings. Just as we were trying to figure out what the heck we were looking at, it starts slowly going back and forth, almost like it was trying to gain momentum. Then all of a sudden, it shot off up in the sky.
So like,
basically. Which, I mean, that kind of reminds me of like their sighting we saw in the backyard, right? It was just all of a sudden like just...
Yeah, well, it got really big.
Right.
And then zoomed out. I mean, just like the one I saw here, too. I mean, it all those 3 lights went into one and then just shot away. Yep. Like, I just need a UFO to just be like, no, I'm still here, bro. Hey.
Well, I mean, like on the bridge of the craft, the person controlling it, ET, UT, whatever. I wonder if they're like, do they have a catchphrase like Picard, like make it so? Or, is there like blip,
engage,
blip, blip, blip? It goes.
Yeah. Or they're up there and they've got signs that say, hey, we can see you. Or do you wave like you do whenever you're on a boat or you see a boat? You're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, I mean, you wave at airplanes, right? So I mean,
I've never waved at airplane. Well, okay, that's a lie. I just did it today. Not even gonna lie. All right. Well, thank you for that. I love that. I love, especially, and Jason McClellan will be excited too because we love our flying saucers, and since we got a disc-shaped one, always room. But I'm gonna talk about the most unbelievable thing in there. Okay, the thing that I don't believe, a new TCBY.
Yeah. So I realized in going back and reading it, that it was reported today, but it happened in 1990.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, because I know there's some holdouts. Like there wasn't one in Louisville on what was that road? I can't remember, for Brownsboro for like a minute. It was like hanging on there for quite some time, and it finally closed down. And then I was like, well, is Maryland where it's from?
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's why, because it's like when all the Bojangles left,
Yeah.
you could still go out to South Carolina and get
It's
it.
like, there aren't any Earlers around Louisville except for like 1 or 2 locations.
Yeah, well, they just reopened those 2 in
Yeah.
Louisville. So, yeah, I mean, that went away forever. So, but yeah, okay, I'm glad to know it was in the 90s now, because I was like, come on, man. The city's best yogurt was still around, and it was a new one?
Yeah.
Anyway.
They rebranded.
They rebranded. TKBY.
Yeah.
The killer's best yogurt. Anyways, let's move on, man. I want to thank you for that. But I do want to get moving, because you hit me up with some saying you got some creepy ketchup. I had some creepy ketchup. And so let's go ahead and move right into creepy ketchup before we get into our interview with Kathleen Marden.
Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Creepy ketchup. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, Josh.
You want to go first? You want
I don't know. Mine's pretty good too, but
paper,
I mean,
rock, scissors?
Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3, shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot. All right, you win. So you go first. By the way, the first time was both scissors.
Yep.
Second time, paper. I had rock and I lost.
Yeah,
So.
there you go.
All right. So what's your creepy ketchup?
Yeah, so first of all, the place we're staying while we're here for this week has a ghost.
Ooh.
So-
what's its name?
I don't know. Don't know a name.
I don't want to
only-
infer.
I've only seen, like I woke up one night and looked over at, like, the room we sleep in has a little bathroom area. So we looked over towards the bathroom area, and I saw like a gray mist come out of the bathroom and then just like walk into the closet.
Now, are you staying in a hotel or Airbnb?
It's an Airbnb.
Airbnb. Okay, so it's a house or an old
Yeah,
apartment or whatever.
And like I said, it came out of the bathroom and then just like walked into the closet.
Now listen, I'm gonna say we're in Phoenix, so the idea of a mist, a fog,
Yeah.
is not happening. So it's too dry for that shit. So I'm pretty intrigued.
So, and then this morning in the same bathroom, I was taking a shower and I had the door closed so as to not disturb Kristen. She was still asleep, and something cast a shadow across the shower doors from outside the shower. And there's nothing there. It's just a light.
Oh, so it's not like from a window?
No, there's no window in there. Just something cast a shadow across the doors.
Nope. Bye. I would have already
So-
just said, I need to get my money back. I'm going to be going to Stefan's house and staying there.
So you want to hear something really funny is that quick, unrelated, but so Kristen's here. She's in the other room while we're recording this. She heard me, so she just sent me a message and said we're freaking moving. So.
That's funny.
I'm gonna have to find another place to stay for the last 2 nights.
These
that we're here.
walls are thin. I did want to say too, you went up to Sedona and got your palm read for the
I
first
did.
time. That's
That
cool.
was a really interesting experience, and I tried not to. I tried to treat it very much like an experiment. I didn't really give the person a lot of information to see, what she would tell me, and she said things that were spot on to my personality.
That's really cool.
So
Yeah, it's something I actually have never done. Like, not professionally. I think Santosh and I in college, like, we had a book, and so we were trying to read each other's palms and stuff, but I never had that done professionally.
And she actually went a little further. Like, she recommended a stone to help me ground and things like that.
Probably some lotion
No,
for your nasty hands.
no, my hands are nice.
I know, because you've never worked a day in your life.
But she did say that I have square hands, which means that I'm good with my hands.
Oh. Did your wife hear that one through the wall?
She did. She did. She heard it through the curtain, actually.
Through the curtain.
But anyway, so that was not even so the ghost in the
That's not even like the big.
No,
oh
no.
Lord.
So last night, got done eating dinner and decided on a whim to drive to like a really dark area to try to see the night sky. So we drove up. I can't remember the lake, but it's like northwest of like Peoria area.
So that would be Lake Pleasant then.
There you go. Yeah. So we drove up there. Well, first of all, the lake area, like we couldn't get down to the lake area. It was closed. But so
yeah, because that's a state park.
So I just pulled off on the side of the road. And we're looking at stars, which we couldn't see that much because it was like a 99% of a full moon. I mean, it wasn't a full moon, but it was, it was just so bright in the sky.
It's enough.
You couldn't see. But so I was like, well, let's just, sit down here and look. So I didn't have any of my stuff. I didn't have my camera. I didn't have a laser pointer. All I had was a flashlight. So we're sitting there and I'm looking out the window, and towards like the southwest, this light starts moving in the sky, and it flashes twice, and then it goes dark, and then it like moves up and it flashes twice, and it kind of zigzags around, and Kristen sees it too, and she's like, it looks like an airplane. So I pull up my airplane app, and I was like, no, it's not an airplane. So I take my flashlight and I kind of flicker it at the light with my flashlight, and it disappears.
They're like, oh shit.
Yeah. So we wait maybe a few minutes, go by some cars, pass us and stuff like that. It comes up again. Same little area, zigzagging around. I flash it with the light, disappears.
Wow.
So then we wait a little bit longer. And of course, Kristen's like, well, it was probably a satellite. I was like, well, it's not as really, I mean, I know what satellites look like moving across the sky. So a few minutes later, there's a light moving across the light. He's like, okay, here, look at this one. This is probably a satellite.
Should check your satellite app.
Well, it wasn't, I mean, it was too bright and erratic to be a satellite. But anyway.
Oh, I know, but I mean for burden of proof.
Yeah. So I see one though that it's like, hey, this is probably a satellite. Well, we're watching it and it's tracking across the sky, and then all of a sudden it makes a 90-degree turn.
No way.
It starts zigzagging across the sky, and I like take my flashlight again and I'll put it on the strobe light, and it disappears.
No way. That's crazy. Because I mean, now listen. I hope your wife knows that air machines do not move in different directions like that. So that's some pretty good proof, I think, not just for you, but hopefully for her as well.
Well, and that's like, again, on a whim, we drove out there, didn't have any of my camera stuff. So I felt like we were there to see those things for her.
Yeah.
So that's what I took it as.
Man, you could have done the CE5 stuff, and then you could have seen some more.
She was also a little freaking out because there were like, we could hear bushes and stuff rustling, and on the way out to the middle of nowhere, we were listening to Captured, the Betty Barney Hill.
There you go. Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely coyotes out there and javelinas, and rabbits and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So
yeah.
I mean, could have been anything.
so that's my creepy catch up.
So my creepy catch up. It's like you jinxed me when you're like the other day, or whenever last week, or whenever the last time when we were like, man, you haven't had a night hag in a while. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't. Well, thanks, because I did last night. For the first time, I think I've only had one since I've been here. Maybe two. But yeah, I was like, I was sleeping on the couch, and I will remark, I was sleeping on my back. I was sleeping on my back, but I fell asleep on the couch watching Scooby-Doo. Now, I don't think that Scooby-Doo had anything to do with this, okay? But I was watching Scooby-Doo, and I fell asleep. Well, anyways, I wake up to just heavy breathing. And so I'm thinking, am I snoring? Is something wrong? What's going on? And standing at the end of the couch where my feet are is this black creature, different than the ones I normally see. So it's not the ones with like the gangly arms and things like that. This was a little more classic. It was like hooded almost, and all I could see were the red eyes, but hooded, standing there, but still like super black, all the way top to bottom, and I can't move, and I'm like, something feels weird about this. I don't like this. And I'm like thinking in my head, Josh said it might be nice. And so I'm like projecting, hey, I don't fear you. I'm here, whatever you need. And then it was like, I'm not sure if I blinked or what, but I'm going to say I blinked, and it was gone from the edge of my bed, and out of the corner of my eye, I see it next to me. Like its face is like right next to me, and it leans in and whispers in my ear and says, you need to fear me. And then boom, I was out again and woke up the next morning. But it was like a whisper though. So it was like, you need
do fear me.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like I was like, Josh is wrong. But yeah, so that's what happened to me last night.
Which it's interesting that it was hooded, because it makes me think about the show we did with M.R. Gorga, and him talking about his thing that he saw was hooded as well.
Yep. Brad, a lot of Brad's night hags were hooded. I've heard of some other ones. That was a new one for me. So, but yeah, very spooky. Not looking forward to going to bed tonight, because that really got to me, because I was like, I don't fear you. Josh said I should see what you have to say.
Sorry, man.
Yep.
Next time.
Again, doesn't mean that all night hags are bad or whatever,
right.
but this one was an asshole is all I'm going to say. So anyways, let's get moving on. We're going to go ahead and take a very small break here real quick. And when we come back, we're going to check out this great Gettin' Spooky interview with Kathleen Marden. So stick around after the break. We love you guys. Be back. Good evening, dear friends. I am your headmister, Stefan Gearhart.
And I am your co-mister, the man with no name, Lance Wayne.
And we are the Misters of the Dark.
Join us as we discuss everything from horror books, films,
and even pretty princesses. Join us every other Tuesday in our dilapidated mansion. You never know what's going to happen next.
only on the FearScape Media Network.
That's a good laugh.
Welcome back, everybody. Coming back, we're going to be talking here with Kathleen Marden. As we said, the niece of Betty Hill from the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, as well as the author of several books. But the one we're really talking and focused on today is Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience. So welcome, Kathleen.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
This is an absolute pleasure, Kathleen. We absolutely love your work. Of course, we're huge fans of Betty and Barney. Of course, that's something we've talked about from the get-go. Many shows we reference it quite a bit. So this is a cool little bucket list thing for us, and we thank you so much for taking your time.
My pleasure.
So I just wanted to say, I have a couple of mental notes that I want to make sure to talk about tonight. but you know, the book Captured is a phenomenal writing, phenomenal the way it's put together and assembled, and the flow of the way facts are presented. So, I mean, again, I love the book is basically what I'm trying to say.
I like to hear that.
Same. You know, my first experience was the original book written about Betty and Barney Hill, and just such a difference, you know, not necessarily, you know, writing was different back then, of course, blah, 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 but just so much more in depth. It's less, what's the word I'm looking for? Not fantastical, but, you know, whatever, you know what I mean, when they blow it up in a newspaper article. Yes, you know what I mean. It's just it's in depth, and it's fantastic, and it's touching.
For me it's a delivery of a very fact-based case, right? You really lay out a lot of the pre-information. Anytime that you reference someone else's work, you give background information on that person to establish them as a witness, as a credible witness. I mean, it's a very almost lawyer type assembly of a case, and again, I appreciate it. So
Yes, and you know, I believe that UFO cases, particularly abduction cases, should be tried in a court of law rather than a court of science.
Yes,
because the scientific evidence, there is scientific evidence, but the science of today does not accept that evidence readily.
yeah, I mean, it's we've talked about this before, is that it seems like a lot of modern science almost looks at science as almost like their religion, and anything that challenges their understanding of what is modern science must be, you know, false or fake or whatever the case may be. So, I think that a lot of scientists nowadays struggle with even just pondering the possibilities beyond our current understanding.
Yes, and scientists today, and I'm not criticizing scientists,
Not at
but
all.
the mainstream scientists are looking for one piece of evidence, not 50 pieces of evidence, only one. And that one is supposed to prove that these are extraterrestrials coming from some distant star system. And what one piece of evidence can prove that? It's more like evidence in a court of law, because there are so many pieces of evidence that all combine to win the case, you
Right.
might
Yeah.
say.
Well, we talked about it because I watch and listen to a lot of true crime, and you see how many cases have they've convicted folks on witness accounts alone, not a shred of evidence, just a witness account.
Yes.
And finding out these witnesses made things up or whatever. But yet when it comes to this, witness accounts account for nothing. It's interesting. And it's funny to me because I'm like, for the scientists that are in that realm, they get just as mad at the flat earthers, because the flat earthers will say, well, no, I'm saying it's flat because I have not seen it round. And that's their justification, is show me that it's round. Take me to outer space and show me that it's round. And you can't do that because you can't just take anybody to outer space. So they say, therefore, it's flat. Well, the scientists do the same thing. They're like, show me the actual UFO, show me the alien, put it in my garage and let's dissect it. Then I'll believe you. Right? It's
Yes.
the same thing.
Yes. Show me one piece of evidence that can be taken to the National Academy of Sciences, which, by the way, is a politically connected organization, and they will verify that this is extraterrestrial.
Well, and it seems like a lot of science comes at the UFO phenomenon from a stance of, okay, you think it's ET, so therefore I'm going to do all the science to prove it's not ET, as opposed to I'm just going to do all these experiments on what you've collected and come to our own conclusions without any preconceived idea of what I'm trying to disprove.
And let me use Dr. Roger Lear, the late Roger Lear, as an example. He did have very good evidence in the implants that he removed from abductees' bodies. They were highly unusual. They were connected to proprioceptic nerves, little nerve endings on each end of that implant. And then it was coated with a very tough substance. When the scientists cut it open, they realized it was of crystalline structure, nanotechnology, far in advance of anything that we had. Also, it was made of rare earths and meteoric material.
Yeah, I think I watched a documentary that was called like the eighth patient or the ninth patient or something like that, and it was talking a lot about the work that Dr. Lear was doing and how they actually did metallurgical analysis of one of the items that were taken out of this particular patient that they were following. And it had like 156 different isotopes present in this tiny little sample. And they were talking with a metallurgist, and he was saying that's, in most of the things that we create on Earth, there's maybe 5 different isotopes. But this was 100 and something, well beyond what our current manufacturing processes would allow.
And one of those implants broadcast into deep space, and it eventually turned itself off after a certain period of time. But what happened to Dr. Roger Lear is after he passed away, he was debunked. They said that he lied, he exaggerated. They tried to destroy his reputation, and that's what they try to do to every scientist connected to the UFO field.
Yeah, and still kind of do. I mean, I'm sure we'll tap into this with tomorrow supposedly being disclosure day. But yeah, it still happens. And it happens a lot, just like you said, after someone passes when they can't defend themselves.
Well, and there seems to be such a, it's almost like I would like to go to the scientists or even in just individuals who say this can't happen. And it's odd that the burden of proof is always placed on people who are quote unquote believers, but the burden of proof is never placed on the person who has a problem with whatever you're explaining. So there's always some weather balloon, swamp gas, explanation, but never okay, show me how what I saw could have been a weather balloon. Go out and get a weather balloon, put it up in the sky. Let's take a video of it. Let's compare it to this other video, and let's see if that's matches. Instead of just it was swamp gas.
Well, my co-author on 3 books captured the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience, Science Was Wrong, and Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers was nuclear physicist Stanton T. Friedman.
Love that
Stanton
man.
Graduated first in his high school class. He was accepted to MIT, but didn't have the money to go. So he ended up getting bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Chicago and worked highly successfully as a nuclear physicist for, I believe it was 11 years before he became interested in UFOs and having a career doing that. But when I watched mainstream television shows about Stanton, he was never introduced as a nuclear physicist. He was introduced as a UFO believer or a UFO promoter.
Yep, it's the same thing. Like we had Ralph Blumenthal on, and he just wrote that book about John Mack, and it was the same thing. How they tried to just destroy John Mack, and he had so many qualifications. Like, I mean, he even went into it as a non-believer, which is even better, and he came out of it a believer. Even Ralph said he was a non-believer until he started researching John Mack, and then he became a believer.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
I did an interview with him for Vanity Fair magazine about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow, yeah, he's come a long way. I mean, he shared with us, and he still tries to be hesitant about it, but he's just like, a lot's changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh, the same thing is like with ghosts. I say the same thing. A skeptic can come in and say, oh, well, that door could have been blown open and that would have been a breeze. Well, show me how that could have happened. I can also say, well, it could have been someone who passed on and left their spirit behind and opened that door. We now share the same experience here. I can't prove mine. You can't prove yours.
Right.
So.
We can't prove a negative, right?
Right.
So.
Right. You can't.
So I wanted to just real quick, and I'm hoping that I'm going to try not to give anything away in the book, but I had a question and I wanted to know your insight or thoughts on it. But in the book, there's pretty early on, and it talks about some of the things that Barney said as they were kind of watching what was happening and before they actually were taken. And he made the comment, and it's actually repeated several times in the book. Oh no, not again. And I kind of honed in on that, and I wondered if there's another part in the book where it talks about Barney was more easily hypnotized, and he had deeper trances than Betty did. And I wondered if maybe that was not the first time Barney had been abducted.
Possibly. I question whether they had both been abducted previously. The reason for that is that I've worked on 3 major studies on experiencers, totaling more than 5,000 people. The latest one that I worked on was done by the Mutual UFO Network's Experiencer Research Team. I was the director of that team for 10 years. And what we determined was that the majority of abductees and experiences, we had different characteristics for them, but they were taken for the first time when they were less than 20 years old, over, I think it was 75% were taken for the first time when they were less than 20. Now, Betty and Barney, when they were taken, Barney was 39 and Betty was 42, I believe it was. And so, you know, why would they be taken for the first time then? So I suspect it was just their time to be picked up.
Yeah.
I didn't want to think about that previously, you know, back when I read the book, because I wasn't doing a lot of speculating. But I am now, based upon all of the information that I've collected in these studies that I've worked on. And, you know, when after Barney walked into the field and looked up at this craft and the non-human entities looking down at him, all but one moved to a panel on the back, and when that happened, little red lights started to slide out on fin-like structures, and something started to drop out of the bottom of the craft.
Yeah.
And he thought he was going to be taken, going to be captured. Went running back to the car, hopped in, saw the craft coming in his direction, went speeding down the highway. And within a little while, not long at all, he and Betty heard a series of code-like buzzing sounds striking the trunk of the car. And the car vibrated and a tingling sensation passed through their bodies. Well, whenever experiencers are taken, generally there's a tingling sensation that passes through their bodies. And with those buzzing sounds on the trunk that left shiny concentric circles on the trunk of that car that were magnetic, it makes me wonder if that strong electromagnetic field from that craft actually picked the car up. Betty and Barney didn't entertain that idea, but as I was doing my research on the book, I had that difficulty. In their hypnosis tapes, they only made one turn off Route 3. Well, you can't make just one turn off Route 3 and get to the abduction site. You have to make 1, 2, 3 turns.
Well, what kind of struck me about it in something that, again, this is all speculation at this point, but is the tones that were hitting the car. This is going back a few years, but when you used to get a universal remote for your TV, you know, you go to Walmart or someplace and you get a universal remote, you'd come home and it would run through and cycle through all the different codes until your TV did something, and then it would say, okay, is this the right, you know, did we find the right code? So it made me think, are they bouncing all these frequencies out, trying to find the right signal to control their car? And then they find it, and then they take control. Because Barney also talks about how he made a sudden left turn that he didn't intend to make.
Right.
And so, were they controlling the vehicle?
I think at some point they were controlling the vehicle, because he made that one turn. And on the hypnosis tape, he talks about, I made a turn, and I don't know why I had to make that turn. Yeah. He says to Dr. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, and it's in thinking about the possibility of was this not the first time? I know that Barney was in the military during World War II. And there was, we know, a lot of activity with like the Foo Fighters and things like that.
Well, not only that, I was going to bring up too, I mean, even with African Americans, you had the Tuskegee experiments and things like that. I mean, we are pretty certain the Nazis had some crafts and some things like that, who knows if when he said, oh no, not again, was he having PTSD from something that happened in the military? Because that's a perfect place for that to have happened.
I can only tell you that he, when he was released from the Army, he had been at a proving ground. Now, what was it? It's in Virginia.
Yeah.
And he was released in fair condition. Some type of bomb, maybe a grenade, had exploded, hit him in the chest. He had a lot of scars on his chest, knocked his teeth out.
Yeah,
so
I remember.
He had to wear dentures. And
Well,
I wonder if that's what caused the fatal brain bleed in 1969 that he had. I know that a percussion accident can cause a weakening of the blood vessels in the brain. My next door neighbor was a medical doctor who served in the Middle East, and he was in an explosion, and he came home and had a stroke.
Yeah, that's actually been a lot of. I'll watch several TV shows that are rather military in nature, talk about people who are in the military and doing things in the military. And one of the things that one of these shows focused like 3 episodes on was how important it is for soldiers to ask about the injuries that could be internal to the head that may not be evident when they come back, or they were in an IED explosion or something like that didn't kill them, didn't maybe even cause them to lose any limbs or anything, but maybe there was other trauma that they didn't recognize. And so that is I think a big thing that people are starting to think about is, you may get into an accident, you may have be close to an explosion or something, and you may not have any physical damage, but there may be something going on in there that you don't know about, and just one day suddenly you're just gonna have an aneurysm or something, and that's to be the end of it. So
right, yes, that's what happened to Barney.
Well, and then you add all that stress. I mean, the biggest thing for me is the fact that they were an interracial couple, which already the last thing you want to do is put your face on a map, right, on national media to be harassed. I don't care if you're in the Northeast or not. It was everywhere were racists and excuse my language, but assholes. And so already you've got that to deal with before the UFO stuff. And then on top of that, and then being stressed about being called a liar and all of that things. I mean, I just can't imagine the stress that they both went through, especially Barney, because that male pride, especially back then, I can't. How brave.
It's not only that they did not go public. They said they were never going to go public. There was a violation of confidentiality. That year, when that violation happened in late October, that very year, 1965, Betty and Barney had been invited guests at Lyndon Johnson's inauguration. I went with them. Barney had been given an award by Sergeant Shriver from the Federal Poverty Program for setting up the Rockingham County Community Action Program with other citizens, but he served as the first chairman of the board of directors. He also received an award from the Archdiocese of Manchester, New Hampshire, for setting up a literacy program. And he was appointed to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights State Advisory Committee. You put all of those things together, and that is a great man. That is a man who is highly respected. That is a man who is not going to go around saying, I've been abducted by aliens. No, that destroyed Barney's life when he was outed.
And even his reputation. I mean, no one speaks about his other work. I love hearing you talk more about it, because he did a lot for that movement and all of that. Hell, the both of them did. And I hate that it gets overshadowed by this. But at the same time, I also love it too, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, what a remarkable gentleman. And yeah, the stress, like I said, that had to go, especially for him, because he was the one that was in the scarier position then.
Absolutely. He was the most vulnerable. Betty was a social worker for the state of New Hampshire. She was very politically involved too, and in all of the things that Barney did. But Betty was a different kind of person. She didn't care what people thought about her. Really?
She reminds me so much of my grandmother, because my grandmother was very much like that. She had a grandmother that was a socialite and like just was widowed at like 20 years old, and she never remarried. Like her kids, you know, she had kids at 18 and 19, and she had because she was married at 16, so she had like 3 or 4 kids and then went on blah. But so she was always telling my grandmother, she was always like, you need to, you know, be a woman and let me show you what we can do. And she was in the early suffragette movement and all of that stuff. And so my grandmother learned a lot from her. So anytime I read the sassiness of Betty, I'm always like, that's my grandma Phyllis right there.
Yes. And you know, my grandmother, Betty's mother, was a suffragette too.
So I love that. That's one of my favorite things, because I love that sassy personality, just that I don't care. Because my grandmother, that's what she taught me too. Like, I've always been kind of a big guy, but I never cared, because she just taught me, who cares? Just love yourself and, you know, just fight for the people you love. That's all that matters.
Yes. Well, I sort of started to ignore the disinformants and the debunkers. They call them debunkers, but they put the bunk in. They don't take the bunk out. So I call them disinformants.
Yes.
But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they're just adult bullies. They don't tell the truth. They enter speculation and character assassination. And I've just told them quite a long time ago that if they would like to come to my home, I have a complete copy of all of Betty's files here. The other copy is at the University of New Hampshire. I have all of my research, and I'd be happy to sit down and show it to them. Do you think one of them has taken me up on my offer?
No, because it's all about
power. They stopped bothering me.
But you know what? You know what else is probably really probably true and also sad is that I guarantee you none of them have read the book.
I doubt that they have.
They probably just watched the James Earl Jones movie and they were like, this is it, 100%.
And you know that no Hollywood movie is precise. It's spun the way, you know, they want to spin a story. They wanted to add sort of intrigue and emotion into it, and wanted to leave it open that, well, maybe it didn't really happen, maybe it was just a dream, that sort of thing.
I do miss those old TV movies based on real life stuff, though. We don't get that anymore. I do miss those.
So I wanted to if this is too personal of a question, just let me know and we'll take it out. Have you ever had your own experience? Because I know some of these things many people have alluded to they run in families.
And of course your work with MUFON.
Right, and your work with MUFON and other things. But just curious if you've ever had your own experience.
Well, let me say that I have. It is intergenerational. Among 60% of our abductee group, they were aware that another member of the family had been abducted too. I think that the percentage was probably higher than that, but 60% is highly statistically significant.
Really. Yeah.
And yes, my mother was taken, and I was taken too. I don't know how old I was when it began. Most people are taken for the first time when they're less than 20 years old. The time that I remembered was when I was 17. My mother remembered it too. Betty was working on an experiment with a team of scientists, and they gave her a script to read, and she would go out onto her back porch and try to send these messages to her ET group.
It's almost like Stephen Greer, like they're just sending stuff out there.
Yeah, sort of, but she would say, give the coordinates, and I'd like you to land in this place. Well, she kept saying, I'd like you to land on my parents' farm in South Kingston. So she did that over and over again. Now, I grew up across the street from my grandparents, and one night a craft was observed coming in, looked like for a landing. There was a commercial pilot who was a neighbor of ours who saw it coming in. We found out about that the next day, and my grandmother saw it as well. And I guess then she ran and hid. but
Good work.
Yeah.
but they could get her if they wanted.
Yeah.
So my mother and I think that was the time when we found ourselves on that craft. And I was taken periodically, and I was traumatized for a long time because of it. And finally, I found a really caring individual, Denise Stoner, whose case I investigated, and she is now Florida MUFON's assistant state director. But she is highly knowledgeable about this topic. But I investigated her case, and I did the hypnosis with her separately and with her husband, just like Dr. Simon did with Betty and Barney, and because instilled amnesia after the session.
Right.
And so what was I saying about Denise now? That was a point I was going to make.
I was following you, though, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You were saying that...
but Denise was the person, yes. Denise was that kind person who was a skilled hypnotist as well. She ran a support group for experiencers, and she worked with me. I had other researchers work for me, but the memories only increased my fear, I think, because when I'd become upset, they'd end the session. So what I remembered was that fear. Denise helped me to work through that fear. You're all right. No harm can come to you. Step back from it. Take a breath. Are you ready to go back? That kind of thing that knowledgeable hypnotists use. And it really helped me a tremendous amount. I was never going to go public with any of this. And then, about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, I was working at conferences, and it seemed that whenever I was at a conference, some psychic medium would walk up to me and say, you really need to tell your own story because it will help so many people. And I'd say, no, I'm taking it to my grave. But then I guess it was enough people who said, they convinced me anyway. I was convinced that.
Well, thank you for doing that, because one of the big things we stress on this show is that you're not alone, and that this isn't a thing that would only happen to you. And so when those of us that share our stories and things like that, it lets others know that are scared too, that it's okay, they're alone. They don't have to share it, but just know, hey, this happened to others as well. And I love to hear that there was a support group for experiencers. So, because we talk about that all the time, how hard that is to find, because we get folks that come to us about kids that have been possibly abducted or things like that, and they don't know where to turn, and it's so hard to find support groups.
And it sounds like that MUFON maybe has a specialized department for that we were not previously aware of.
Well, MUFON has the Experiencer Resource Team, 45 members who speak to experiencers on a day-to-day basis. Now, anyone under the age of 18 has to be with their parent and have to have written permission in order to talk to one of our support people. But our support people also have a list of support groups, and some of them are online support groups.
Yes. Now those, that's pretty much where we end up sending folks to, or hitting up some of our connections to see if they know folks in that area or things like that.
But so is it just a matter of, this is probably a little bit of a PSA, but is it just a matter of, so I know MUFON has on the website, the report sighting section.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Not if you're just looking for support.
Okay.
Go scroll down to Experiencer Resource Team. It's right on the home page.
Okay.
And click on the link to the Experiencer Resource Team. What you'll come up with is a page that shows the photographs of everyone on the team. I was the director for 10 years, but now I'm a consultant due to time limitations. But there at the top of the page is the Experiencer questionnaire. All you have to do is click on that. It's 30 questions, true or false. Don't worry about your score. I heard that there were people who didn't want to talk to anyone because they only scored 10 or 15 out of 30. Well, the way that's set up, if you get between 15 and 23, you've had experiences for a long time. If you get only 10, maybe this is fairly new to you, or the realization of it is fairly new. So, yeah,
well,
they're not going to judge you.
I wonder how many people, as a need to maybe feel connected, want to see a high score, right? And so,
I think I told you that I just saw a documentary the other day, and it was talking about personality tests and all of the history of that and how that has really kind of screwed us. It has showed us that we're put into a box, and so people have gotten to this point where they feel like they have to score a certain way or answer things a certain way, or they're going to be looked at as something. That's exactly what this documentary talked about. Is it scares people now to take anything like this because they're afraid they're either not going to be believed, or they're not going to score high enough. They're not going to be considered like valuable.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Or credible. Maybe.
Credible, yeah.
Right. But in the experiencer resource team, they're non-judgmental listeners. They're not going to say, I don't believe you. I don't believe this happened. That's something for the experiencers to figure out.
Right.
And if you purchase my book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, you can get an autographed copy from my website at Kathleen-Marden.com. It's a comprehensive guide for experiencers and all sorts of information to help people.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, we've talked on my show. I had recently discovered there was a possible for me when I was 4, and we were talking about we're getting together in September with another friend of ours who's a hypnotist as well, and I was wanted to take a look to see what I could find because there's 2 days missing, and I always thought it was a dream until one day I was kind of just throwing it out there to my sister, and she's like, "No, I remember that." Like the stuff that would bookend an abduction, in my opinion. And she remembered that too. And then I brought it up to my mom, and my mom was like, "Yeah, I remember that." She's like, "Oh my God, yeah, you guys were missing for 2 days, and I didn't know where you were. And we ended up 6 miles away from the house."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I always thought it was a dream. And my mom was like, "No, I never told you." They were divorced. She's like, "I never told your dad because I was afraid he was going to take you kids." And like, she was like, "I had one more day before." It's just this whole crazy thing. So I've been wanting to look more into it for my own stuff because another thing because my dad still doesn't know. He doesn't really listen to the show, so he still doesn't know. But he's always said that around the age 4, he said at 4 and 5, I really changed my personality. Before then, I was really quiet and shy and never really said a word. And then after that, I was hyper and crazy and like got into trouble and things like that. And now I look back and I'm like, man, did that change me? Like, did something happen?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, let me give you some of the most prominent characteristics among experiencers of contact. 1, you become more spiritual.
I am a very spiritual person.
2, you become psychic or at least intuitive. 3, you you become empathic, which is a psychic sense where you can feel another person's emotions as if they're your own. All of those statistically through the roof with abductees.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because so we moved in with my father when I was towards the end of my 5th year, and that is when my sister and I started experiencing ghosts and things like that. My sister, still to this day, she's a medium. She's able, which is funny because we talk because she doesn't believe in aliens or anything, but she's a medium.
Well, maybe she got the gift from
right,
them.
and that's what I think. So she used to be able to speak to the ghosts, and I've always had what I always have joked as ghost empathy because I can feel not just people, but the spirits that she's speaking to. I can feel that emotion and things like that, and we were doing that when we moved in around that time. So it probably would have been a year or so after when that happened. That all of a sudden we were developing these gifts. I just assumed they were always there, but I never thought about it that we never had any of those instances when we lived with my mom prior to that.
Well, and I ticked off all three of those things too. So it's maybe I should go fill out the questionnaire.
I know. I already got it pulled up. I'm already kind of like click, and then I was like, we should start a support group out here. Well, and
it's interesting too. We've talked about a lot. We go out in the desert, or in Kentucky, we go out in the fields and stuff like that, and we try to make contact. We've had some amazing experiences. I don't think we've ever had actual contact that I know of, but it's weird because here we are trying to initiate contact, but if contact were to actually present itself, I don't know what I would do. Would I be Barney? Would I try to flee and get back in the car or whatever? Stefan has jokingly said that he'll push me in front of him and run away. But I mean,
be telling her that.
I hope it's a joke.
I get scared real easy.
But I mean, it's just back probably about a year ago, when we were really deep into trying to make contact, and we had seen a lot of UFOs in my backyard and things like that. I was walking my dog in the middle of the morning, and I really got a strong feeling that something was watching me in my backyard. And I mean, to the point where my dog was like staring at something in my backyard, and I felt very uneasy, and I ran back inside. So it's just funny how I want to know the answer to the question, but when the answer presents itself, I'm like, I'm not ready yet. Just come back.
Well, it took me years to psych myself out. I'm a hypnotherapist, a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. And so I conditioned myself by hypnotizing myself and giving myself words for a rapid induction. It really comes in handy when I can't sleep too. I use it for that. But what I found is if I would see a light coming into my room or feel the presence of entities, I would psych myself. I'd do the rapid induction, and so that I would be calmer and in a different frame of mind, and then I could just like throw love out toward them telepathically. Oh, I love you, that kind of thing. And so when you do that, you get a really good response from them.
That reminds me of the what's the meditation stuff that me and Santosh have been working on.
The Gateway Experience.
Yeah, we found the Gateway Experience and have been kind of doing it. Your rapid induction reminded me of a lot of that because you can very quickly get into it.
It sets you up for teaching you how to quickly get into like a really deep state, and how to quickly clear your mind, how to quickly go into almost a state of, I guess you would call it trance, where your body's asleep but your mind's awake. And so it's
which never worked for me when I need it. I get I have sleep paralysis, night hags always since I was a little kid. Just before we got on with you, I was saying I just had one for the first time in a couple months last night, and some things like that. I never think to do it when I'm in there, when I'm just like trying to send love there. I'm just like, wait, get me out of here. Like I need it when I'm in stress mode. That's what I need it.
Well,
my brain doesn't work that way.
It's funny. I took parts of that Gateway Experience sessions, and I've broken them up in an effort to create my own session that will basically do what you're talking about. But it creates in myself a trigger word that, if spoken, puts me into a very calm, relaxed state, so that I can be receptive to whatever signals or whatever that I think I should be receiving. And so it kind of builds that in, and then I haven't started actually listening to it yet, but that's my intention, is to basically use some of the methodologies that are found in that Gateway Experience to code my brain to do certain things when certain words or things are spoken. So Yeah.
Good idea.
or some tones near your car, you want to be careful.
Right.
Because that was something I was thinking about. You know, they talk about old spies or like things like that had these triggered noises or sounds, and so I always think about that with Betty and Barney, is that, you know, those triggered tones creating that hypnotic state, or, you know, that meditative state to be able to take them. You know, because as much as movies always show people going, "Oh my God, it's aliens, run!" most of the time, it's in real life. It's more like, "What's happening? I can't move. I don't really know what's going on. Oh, I'm here now." Like, that's more of what we see, right? So it's like,
Right.
are they using tones? Are they using?
Well, one of the things that kind of struck me as interesting is. Talks about the craft having almost like the wings that fold out with the lights on either end. That made me think, is that an attempt for hypnosis? You know, is using flashing lights or just lights in general for you to focus on? Was that an attempt to basically hypnotize them, to get them to calm down and calmly go with them? And also, I thought it was a little eerie when I was reading this part, but where Barney's looking through the binoculars and he's locked eyes with the being in the craft, and he's getting these messages telepathically that says, "Don't look away, don't
Right.
look away." I'm like, what would I do? I mean,
Yeah, just stand there and
Yeah.
keep looking. Stand there and keep looking. That's why Barney broke the leather binocular strap when he pulled the binoculars down from his eyes. He had to do it so forcefully to overcome those messages in those crazy eyes of that leader.
Well, and again, to show you what an incredible person Barney was to even have that strength to do so, especially if this had happened before, right?
Yes.
If we speculate that it had indeed happened before to either him or both of them, that's incredible. I mean, if I hear a baby cry, I can't even walk away. You know what I mean? It's like if my dog looks at me, I'm like, fine, I will give you the entire fridge. Like, how is he able to just do that and break that? It's incredible.
He was a very brave man.
Phew.
He was.
so I had a question and I totally lost it.
Sorry, I threw you off, man.
Yep.
I get excited about this stuff because it's just I love strong people, man. Like, it's just.
Oh, I know what it was. So I wanted to ask you, and we ask everybody who comes on. So if somebody's on to talk about ghosts, we ask them what they talk about, you know, aliens or ET. So I'm going to ask a related question. What do you feel about Sasquatch?
Sasquatch?
Yeah.
I suspect that Sasquatch is interdimensional. From the reason for that is that I've spoken with people who are Sasquatch hunters, and they've given me some information, and to them they believe that it's interdimensional, and somehow it appears to be connected to UFOs as well.
Well, you know, and I also have heard that interdimensional and
we actually kind of feel that same way.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've recently thought about is there seems to be, in a lot of UFO cases, there is always a talk of an electromagnetism that is put off by the craft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, does that electromagnetism somehow affect the space to open doorways for Sasquatch and other things to come through into our plane of existence? So
that is exactly what I've been pondering for quite a long time. There is a very strong electromagnetic field, and does that strong electromagnetic field open up like an interdimensional portal through which the ETs come, and then if it's left open, all of these different interdimensionals can come in as well.
And maybe it's one of those things where it has an expiration, right? So it's opened and it remains open for some period of time before it fades away, if you will. And so while it's open, things can come and go as they please. When it fades away, some of those things maybe get stuck in our plane, until another doorway is opened by another craft, and then they can go back to their plane. So,
and then you have your areas like up in Sedona near me is, those vortexes and things like that that some speculate that were openings that have stayed open due to the energy there's the quartz and the things like that, or others say that those are areas where it's easier to open and things like that.
So maybe the better question for you then is not what do you think about Sasquatch, but is there any aspect of the breadth of paranormal that you find difficulty in understanding, or at least having a theory about?
I think that it's like the black-eyed children that I've heard about, but is incomprehensible to me. That I've never seen this kind of thing. There are parts that I have difficulty with. The stories about people who are being taken under the earth and claim that these reptilians or extraterrestrials are doing really bad things to humans. I suspect that it could be happening. I don't know. But I suspect that they're not traveling the vast expanse of space in order to do bad things to humans. I suspect that they've been here all along.
Right, I was even going to say that because when you were talking about the flashing lights and the things like that and how easily most people in these abduction cases or these UFO cases we've seen where there's been time loss, there's a lot of times been flashing lights. I'm like, if the ancient alien theory is correct, let's say we're hybrids or whatever the case may be, were we preconditioned ahead of time and over generations, it misses some folks and things like that, as evolution kind of does with us. Were we kind of preconditioned to be called?
Susceptible.
Yeah, susceptible for when they need access to us later.
Yeah,
good question.
Yeah,
but some of those groups say we planted your seed here, and we come back from time to time to assist in your development.
Well, and one of the things that I've talked about quite a bit is that I don't think it has to be a one or nothing situation. Like there can be extraterrestrial, there can be interdimensional beings, there can be what some have dubbed ultra terrestrials. That is to say, they're already here. Where there's another race living alongside us that we just don't ever see. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, it can be all of those things.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Even with the ETs who travel in craft, I've worked with people, highly credible, multiple abduction, good evidence case, where the entities in the craft, it was two separate groups working together, but they said, the ones that looked human said that they had at one time lived on our planet, and that there was an environmental collapse, and they had the technology to move on. Now, most people had to stay here, but this group had gone. They found another planet in a binary star system where it's twilight most of the time, and they just spend most of their time on their craft now. But they come back, they say they hop through time and space to visit Earth. They don't take anything. They just come to check up on us.
Yeah,
that's one group. Then you have other groups of each so-called ETs who are collecting DNA from humans and experimenting with the hybridization process, which I believe they've told me is to upgrade the human genome. They're attempting to move us ahead on an evolutionary scale, so we won't be as primitive and barbaric as we are now.
I think that, and we're getting some rabbit holes here, but I think that, my opinion, the next evolutionary step for humanity is not a physical evolution, but a spiritual evolution.
They say that is that our technological growth is out of sync with our spiritual
Awareness.
development.
Yeah.
And when you have that problem of being out of sync, it can cause huge problems for a technologically advanced but barbaric civilization, where you can just destroy everything on the planet. So that's their major concern.
Right. Well, and we've talked about before as a theory that are the things that we're doing on our plane of existence, are they echoing or rippling across other planes of existence? So we're only aware of, as bad as it still is, about the damage that we're doing to our own planet, but really there are ripple effects that are compounding across dimensions or across planes of existence that we're not aware of, but are still impacting others. And that's where maybe some of the attention is being put on stopping the use of fossil fuels, and all the attention that was put back in the 60s and 70s and 50s about not using nuclear weapons and all of that kind of stuff.
Back in the 1950s, 1954, there was a woman in Maine who was contacted by a group of extraterrestrials, and they were giving information to her. Some people called it automatic writing, but she said it wasn't really like that. She was just receiving the message like as a medium and writing it as quickly as she could. But they said, those ETs, and Admiral Herbert Knowles, Rear Admiral Herbert Knowles, Wilbert Smith from the Canadian government, Dwight Eisenhower knew about this. A letter went to him, the Office of Naval Intelligence, the Air Force, the CIA, FBI. They were all involved in this. And if you go to my website, you'll see the evidence in the article that I wrote about it. I'm going to take it down in a little while. But anyway, what they said is that our nuclear, when we detonated thermonuclear bombs, it caused huge problems for our magnetic fault lines, and that it caused problems for them because it bled through into all of the other dimensions and caused damage there as well. And that was another big concern that they were voicing back in that time frame.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you look at some of the supposed projects that didn't happen, some things like the Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk project, things that were messing with these wavelengths or these different things where they were messing with time and dimensional things. Even that, yeah, absolutely has to cause some sort of damage in some way. It's got to. Yeah,
I mean, I think, throughout our...
The military has not been one to excise, caution.
Well, a lot. I think, I think throughout human technology, if you want to group it all that way, even over across the previous thousands of years, we've often found new ways of doing something and rushed full steam ahead into doing that. And then only found out much, much later that there were negative consequences of doing so. We rarely take the time to really understand, cost-benefit analysis, if you will, of whatever we find. It's really most of the time probably driven by the almighty dollar, and how much money can we make off of this before it kills us. But I mean, it's those types of things, and I think. Again, that spiritual evolution for us to realize that, we're not the only things alive in our solar system, galaxy, cluster, so on and so forth. We're likely not the only things intelligent living on the planet. I mean, just even some animal life has dolphins, octopuses. I mean, those things have massive intelligences. Just because they can't speak to us in English.
Something I just learned was SETI. One of their big things that they do is work with whales and dolphins to try to understand the language that they use when they communicate, as a way to teach us how to communicate in a different way than how we're used to communicating, That I didn't know that. You always think of just SETI listening to the stars, but yeah, that's one of their huge projects. I just learned was trying to figure out the language, because it's not words, it's not this, but they can completely understand each other even when its frequencies are different. Like, it's still ways to communicate similarly.
Yeah, and I guess to finish off my little soapbox there, it just say that that we need to move past the arrogance of humanity and realize that what we do has rippling consequences across time, space, whatever, and start to really think about the future of our race and our race on this planet or in the cosmos, and not so much about individually how we need to advance.
I agree. Very well stated.
I was going to add to that and say I do improv comedy, and I teach improv and theater, and I teach a lot of corporate team building, but the same can be said about many of these ideas. The main focus there is yes and. It's if we could just listen to what anyone says, agree with it, and see how we can add to it or work with it. My God, the things that we could do in this world, and some of these pseudo sciences could probably be advanced a little bit more if we would just give people a chance and say, all right, well, let's try to work with it and let's see what happens with my resources. So,
we've said it a lot before. The science of today was the magic of yesterday, and the magic of today is the science of tomorrow. And so, we have to start looking at what are the possibilities, like our conversation earlier in the evening around what scientists are willing to look at and accept and explore. We have experimental physicists, and we need experimental metallurgists. We need experimental chemists and so on and so forth to go out there and really think about and look at things in a new way and try to figure out if there's a different way of doing something we haven't even thought about before.
I agree, and it's unfortunate that we have come to a time where it is I believe that academia discourages exploration. They seem more than ever to want us to adhere to the zeitgeist of the old guard. And back in the 50s, it was a lot easier for scientists to study UFOs scientifically. There were some big names, PhDs, who were very vocal in public, and there really was a good exploration of all of this, the congressional hearings, etc. And then it was all turned into something that was either kooky or fraudulent. Yeah. And unfortunately, that I know the background of that. I've done the study of it in archives, and you can read that in Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers. But it's really sad, and I hope that we will begin to expand our knowledge without retribution.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping with, tomorrow's things, whatever it may be. It is put light back on this so well. These newer generations are very accepting to this and things like that. And I hope that there are more torchbearers, like Betty was. She stood bay and strong and then handed that torch to you, and you carried that torch, because we need to learn from the past generation and take some of those PhDs and those scientists that were vocal about it and carry that forward. Yeah. But and not just feel like you have to start anew. We need to teach some of these younger generations that there is a ton of information that is out there if you just know where to look for it, and you can start from there.
Yeah,
absolutely. History is important.
100%.
Yep. And nothing that we, from a UFO perspective, nothing that we are experiencing today is new. It's been happening for hundreds of, if not thousands of years, and documented generation after generation after generation. So
it's just semantics,
right?
So. This is how you say it.
Well, Well, I think I don't want to keep you too late here. We've been going for about an hour, but I do want to thank you again for coming on. I know you mentioned your website, Kathleen-Marden or dash, whichever people prefer to say, .com. Is there anywhere else that people can look and find your information or anything else about you?
Mostly the website. I have Facebook, but I don't go there that often. I stay quite busy.
Yeah.
So if you want to know where I'll be speaking this year, you can go to my website too. You can order autographed copies of my books there, and then there are the articles that I mentioned that you can read for free.
Yes, they are fantastic. And we'll be sharing that on the post as well, the website and all of that. And again, thank you so much, like I said, for carrying the torch that Betty lit and continuing that journey, because your work has been so influential just with MUFON and everything in these books. And like I said, this was a bucket list for us, and we thank you so much for taking your time and just being honest and fun.
It's been a fantastic
thank you so
conversation.
much. I had a good time too.
And anytime you need to do anything to promote anything, we are always here. We would love to have you back anytime, and we will be seeking out you speaking as well. So
okay, thank you so much. Tomorrow I will be speaking at Contact in the Desert.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, is that the virtual?
It's the virtual conference this year, but Roswell is coming up, and that's going to be live this year.
Yeah, I saw that.
You'll see that on my website.
Yep. Well, again, thank you, and
thank you.
I don't want to end it because it's like an old girlfriend. Like, hey, you say goodbye. I always have such a good time. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
You're welcome, and my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. You are the queen of this community, and I cannot stop saying thank you. I know you're not even here now, but I'm still telling you thank you, not just for being on the show, but just for the work that you have done and the work that you do. And I'm so anxious to see what happens tomorrow with Disclosure and see where that takes you, where it takes all of us. And I'm sorry, I'm starstruck, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great conversation. And it was nice. It's kind of like when we first got started in our journey, and I would read books by John Keel, and he would express opinions or theories that I was also having, and so it was like a little bit of a reassurance that these were valid theories. And so it was nice tonight to be able to talk with Kathleen and express some theories and thoughts and have those things again reassured that someone else is thinking that way as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed tonight. And like every other conversation of the type, we probably could have kept going for a long time because it was just
I'm just telling you, man, I want to get her and Andrea Perrin in the same room because they very much reminded me of one another and the way they approach everything. And especially with Andrea's now more vocal talk of UFOs and things like that, I would very much love to be in the same room with them and go through that. And it's it's unfortunate that we will never be able to talk to Dr. Friedman. I know. Passed away in 2019.
It would have been also a great conversation. So it was nice to hear the insights from Kathleen about the way he approached things and things like that. So it's just again, I know what it feels like for me anyway that this show has taken a shift more towards the UFO side of things, but these are just fantastic conversations again, and I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm all charged up.
I am too, and that's why I'm going to segue here so we can start to get wrapped up and get into the true encounter from the FearScape that we've got this week. we've got a story here, a true story. I wanted to find something that felt a little more along the lines of what we would be talking about, since we had the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. And this encounter comes from actually a listener named Chris. Didn't want to say where they were from, but this is their true encounter from the FearScape. And just get ready. This one's a tough one.
The other night I woke up and I could feel a presence in my room. I looked over to my right, and to my horror, I saw a skinny gray figure. I then looked over to the end of my bed, and there were 3 more skinny gray figures standing there. And I remember thinking to myself, no, this cannot be real. I could feel their presence, and it was like they were trying to communicate with me non-verbally. I don't know how else to explain it. I thought that it must just be sleep paralysis. I mean, I've experienced that before, but this time it felt different. I then all of a sudden felt myself being pulled out of my bed by an unseen force, and I was literally floating in the air. I tried to scream. I tried to yell out, but no words came out. I pleaded in my mind for the figures to stop. Please stop. Please pick someone else. Pick on someone else. But my pleas went ignored. So I just closed my eyes. And then I felt what was like an anesthesia face mask being put upon my face. And that's the last thing that I remember before I opened my eyes again. And the figures were gone. I had never had any strange experiences like this before, and I don't have any mental health issues. I am still perplexed as to what happened. I've always been interested in the idea of aliens, but I have doubted others' experiences until now. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but the day before this happened, I even half-jokingly signed a petition that called for the Galactic Federation to reveal themselves. However, these beings didn't seem like they were good-intentioned.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, how, I got this morning. Okay. And this hasn't, I always find it odd that things happen. I had my encounter last night, and some of it in a lot of ways were strikingly similar in some regards.
I mean, it's also very interesting that, I had the sightings that I had last night in preparation or before this, for this recording tonight. So yeah, it's very fortuitous.
Yeah. Again, I know that when this episode will be released, the government disclosure docs will have already been released. And so I hate to be a week behind on that, but I'm excited to see what happens tomorrow on June 25th there, to see what happens. I hope it's something enlightening. I hope it's something fascinating. I hope it's something that is just like we talked to Kathleen about, something that can move this forward instead of back like it did during the time of the Condon report and stuff.
I mean, if it includes nothing and only says we need more time, that is good for me, because that is still not a closed door, right? So
even if you just say, hey, we're not 100% it's aliens, but these are definitely something that us and our allies and even our enemies have no idea what they are, I'm also okay with that, because all you're doing is saying what we've been saying for a while, is that, yes, these are unidentified things. They do exist.
At the end of the day, as long as whatever happens doesn't close the door.
Exactly. And so just to preface it again, it's like, if you've got a story, a true encounter from the FearScape, whether it be ghosts, aliens, demons, I don't care, whatever, Sasquatch, send us your story, fearscapepodcast@gmail.com, or go to @fearscapepod at any of our social medias and send us those stories. We'd love to hear them. We believe you. We are here to believe you. We want to believe you, and you are not alone. I mean, even Chris here talked about, hey, I don't have any mental issues. I don't think mental issues, whether you have them or not, says that your encounter is invalid. If you did have, I have mental issues. I have anxiety and depression and ADHD and all kinds of stuff.
And like we've talked about before, I mean, I think a lot of times people are eager or jump to mental issue classification when it may not be the case. I mean, sometimes it's worth just listening to someone and hearing what they have to say.
Exactly. So we're gonna get out of here, but just a very brief reminder to join our Patreon, patreon.com/FearScapePod, or just go to FearScapePodcast.com/support. You can also go to FearScapePodcast.com/shop or store, excuse me.
Both.
Oh, both. Well, there you go. As another way to support us, say you want something out of the deal. So, and you don't want to do a high tier or anything like that, but you just want a one-time thing. You want to buy a t-shirt or a mug or a sticker or whatever. Those are ways to help us. And plus it helps us if you're getting one of our logo pieces, then you can, brand market. But we have other things that are not logoed. So there's lots of cool stuff. Plus all the other shows from our network, FearScape Media Network. There's a number of new shirts for Misters of the Dark and Ghosts in the Attic, Bodies in the Basement. So there's all kinds of cool stuff out there. So you can go to fearscapemedia.com/store or fearscapepodcast.com/store. But Josh, thank you for coming to Phoenix just to do this show today.
Yep, that was the whole reason I came. For sure.
But we love you guys. We are going to get out of here. Man, keep your fingers crossed for disclosure, everybody, if it hasn't already happened yet. And but I'm out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening to FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. This has been Stefan, and keep your eyes on the skies, folks.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight. Things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.